What I'm going to do is take you through a brief introduction on who CIPS is. I'm sure that most of you have heard about the organization, but for those of you who don't, this is going to be an opportunity for you to find out a little bit about what we do. Professor Boateng mentioned that in supply chain and procurement these days, we've got a lot of practitioners, and that is very true. As he mentioned, people from all over different spheres end up working in procurement and don't necessarily possess the necessary skills and competencies required. Now, the first step in becoming a professional is to become a member of the professional body, and that is exactly who we are. So the first thing that you want to do as an individual working within procurement is to become a member of CIPS. That is now where you will begin your journey in terms of professionalization. For those of you who are already there, we're very grateful to have you. For those who haven't yet joined us, we look forward to having you as a part of our community. CIPS is the largest professional body for procurement and supply globally. We have a community of over 109,000 people globally, and in South Africa, that community comprises of just over 2,000. Now, if you think about it, within PURCO, there must be hundreds, if not thousands, of people who work within procurement. But in the country as a whole, only a mere 2,000 people are members of this professional body currently. That is obviously something that we're going to have to remedy as a matter of urgency. CIPS operates in 150 countries globally. We have offices that are here in South Africa looking after sub-Saharan Africa. We have offices in the UK. We have offices in Dubai, in China, in Turkey. As you can see, our footprint is quite global, and the only area in which I would say that we don't currently have a footprint in South America, but that's obviously something that we are working on. You will be asking yourselves, do we operate in the United States? As you're well aware, Americans are very patriotic, and everything that is American is good to them. So even though they do have their own professional body, CIPS has a collaborative relationship with them where we are working in that country as well. Okay, now, in order to call yourself a professional, you have to possess certain things. It may be a qualification or a designation. Some people who have come from different industries or different spheres, for instance, engineering or accounting, find themselves in the world of procurement. Now, these individuals already possess qualifications from those areas in which they started their careers. But what they don't have is a stamp of approval that proves that they are professionals within procurement and supply. In order for them to get that stamp of approval, you're looking for what is known as the MSIPS designation. Now, that's basically the letters behind your name. And to put it in simple English, if you were a chartered accountant, you would have the designation CASA behind your name. MCIPS is the designation for procurement professionals, okay? Now, you can have a designation by either studying to get through to that designation, or there are different routes that you're able to then follow. I'm going to take you through those routes in a minute. CIPS is all about professionalizing the profession. I know that sounds very odd, but it's the term that we use because it is what we do. We don't only look at upskilling individuals or look at upskilling organizations in terms of their procurement and supply chain capabilities. We also assist in looking at policies, processes, and procedures. Now, you would recall that in Professor Boateng's presentation, he mentioned that people are not necessarily corrupt. It's not the people working within procurement and supply chain who are corrupt, but the systems that they have in place. It's one thing to have people who have the correct competencies, but if they're working within a framework that is not ideal, then you're not going to derive the best results. So what you would want to do is look at upskilling your people and ensuring that they're working within the correct frameworks as well, and that way you will then derive efficiencies. Now, I mentioned that MCIPS is the designation which I hope we will all be working towards. It's not 100% essential that you get this designation. If you want to just upskill yourself so that you have the correct competencies to work in your current role, CIPS will be able to assist with that as well. But if you're looking more in terms of career planning and wanting to sit amongst those individuals in the C-suite one day, then you want to attain your MSIPS designation. Now, the different routes that we have available for attaining those is through academic qualifications. CIPS offers a range of different qualifications which will take you through different diploma levels in order to get you to the MSIPS designation. We start right at entry level, where you have the certificate in procurement and supply, all the way up to the professional diploma in procurement and supply. That, coupled with 3 years relevant working experience within procurement and supply, will then gain you the MSIPS designation, okay? We've also then got what is known as the Corporate Award Program. This is applied learning. Now, whereas the qualifications are basically your standard books, reading through them, sitting down for examinations, the Corporate Award looks at a different way of presenting this very same content. And how it works is that you've got individuals who are placed in a group or a cohort, and they're then taken through a program which looks at the different components of procurement and supply chain. They're assessed by means of assignments. They're also assessed by means of a written project, which is similar to a thesis, and then they have to give a presentation to a panel, which will then determine whether or not they're successful. That, once again, coupled with 3 years relevant working experience within procurement and supply, will then gain them the MSIPS designation. We've also then got something else for your more senior individuals within the organization, and that is known as the management entry route. Now, you will have, I'm sure, some people in this room today who have been working within procurement and supply for quite a number of years. We've got people who've been in the profession for about 10, 15 years. They've gone through the ranks, and they're probably sitting in very senior positions currently, but they don't have anything tangible that actually certifies them as professionals. So in that instance, we would then look at taking them through what's known as the management entry route, and it's basically recognition of prior learning and prior experience. So we look through the content of that individual's CV, we take them through various assessments and various interviews, and if they meet the requirements, they're then able to attain their MSIPS designation. And lastly, we've got accredited degrees or approved degrees. We have certain institutions which offer the CIPS qualifications as a part of their curriculum. So it's basically a SIPS Inside solution. If you study at one of these institutions, you will then not only attain the degree from there, but you will also then get the SIPS qualification at the end of the program. That, once again, coupled with your 3 years relevant experience, will get you the MSIPS designation. Now, I keep referring to this 3 years relevant working experience. Reason why CIPS needs to ensure that you've got the experience is because we don't want to certify someone who's just got book smarts. We need to ensure that you've actually worked in the sphere and that you understand how to apply the knowledge that you have, and that way we're able to then give you the stamp of approval. It's basically similar to serving your articles. In order for you to get the CASA designation, you have to go through 3 years of articles, and then only you get the stamp of approval. So same thing applies. Now, in terms of determining how or where an individual fits in these different routes to membership, we have what is known as the Sourcing Knowledge Questionnaire. That's the SKQ. That, and the results of that SKQ is what my colleague Mark is going to be presenting just now. So what happened is that PURCO engaged CIPS and basically selected 5 individuals from each of the universities to be taken through this assessment. We've got the results of those individuals now, and Mark is going to talk you through them. And based on those results, we will then be able to make a recommendation in terms of which route, which I've just spoken about, would be the most relevant for each of the individuals.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to talk to you about the SKQ, basically procurement competencies. The excellent Professor Boateng this morning talked about how to move our profession forward, we need to acquire skills, okay? Now, this morning, I'm simply going to talk about technical competency. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm not going to talk to you about behavioral competency. Some of the stuff to break through maybe into the C-suite as elements of behavioral competency, but I'm going to talk to you about the results of the SKQ in pure technical competency. You probably recognize this is not a Johannesburg accent. Have you spotted? Yeah? I live in Pretoria. It's true. I've been here for over 4.5 years now, basically involved with CIPS in growing competency, in qualifying people. Some of my victims, my delegates, are in the conference somewhere. They have worked with me in terms of the corporate award program. But what I want to do initially, and I can see this, I'm going to talk to you about what the questionnaire does, okay? It's online. Some of you in here, I'm sure, have gone through this. People go online and they answer a series of questions. And that allows us to pitch them in their competency around 9 procurement technical competencies, which I will explain to you. Okay. I'm going to flip on through this. I'm not here to read out slides. However, I will point out that we've had now, I think, 3,500 there or thereabouts South African procurement people go through this process. So we have a nice representative sample of where people are up to in this country. Okay. We originally developed it a number of years ago. It's probably 10 years now. And it's in the process of being refreshed because competencies are changing, as we heard from Mr. Boateng earlier on this morning. The focus is on about development investment. I love this term here. It avoids a sheep dip approach. You know, just taking people, right, intro to procurement, 2 days of risk management, there you go, have a go with that. What we try to do is focus our attention on where you need to build your competency. Okay, here they are. 9 of them. We've got 9 of them. Number 1, the first thing we assess people on via the questions is about procurement process management. Do you understand the processes? Can you understand demand management? Supplier performance and measurement? Performance management, knowledge management. In the modern day, we love the phrase SRM. I hear that a lot. Unfortunately, the R bit doesn't always happen in what I see. We still seem to be doing a lot of performance management. But we check people's knowledge. How do you develop a KPI? What is it you're measuring? What's the target? What's the realistic target? Number 2 will be about contract selection and legal, because we're all legal experts. I will be honest with you, when it comes to legal, globally when we look at this, often it's a low-scoring competency. A lot of the organizations in this country I've visited in the last 4 years, if there's anything legal, we say, okay, have a look at that legal department, check it and give it me back. We should understand the basics of contract law. What constitutes an offer and acceptance? When do we have agreement? Do we understand the basics of Roman Dutch contract law or English contract law? There are subtle differences. Okay, moving on. Supply chain analysis. We've heard a lot about supply chain. Do we even know how to define a supply chain? Well, basically, it's everything from extraction of material into the hands of a customer. And I would imagine that everything in this room at some point in life came from the ground. It was either grown on the ground, it was dug out the ground, or we bred it on the ground. I'm assuming my shoes are leather. Okay. Moving on to risk management. In terms of risk management, how do you identify and manage risk? For me personally, supply chain management actually is risk management. That is what we do day in and day out. But do we understand how to prioritize risk, identify risk, develop contingencies, mitigation, other actions? I often find in this country, we haven't even got risk registers on our strategic contracts. What happens if something goes wrong? Who do we go to? Who owns that risk? What's the impact? What's the likelihood of these risks to happen? Number 5 is about negotiation. We all love negotiation. Who are the best negotiators on the planet? It's actually children. Kids. Kids actually know how to use persuasion methods naturally. And we lose it about the age of 8 or 9. 20 years later, they send you to see me for 2 days and we learn it again. That's how it works. But when we assess negotiation, it's actually about particular persuasion methods. The problem we have is in this country, it's very much, as Douglas was saying earlier, we think price is negotiation. Negotiation is far broader. The toughest negotiations you'll probably have will be with your internal stakeholders, not with the suppliers. The same principles apply. Negotiation simply is, can I get somebody to move towards me? Whether it be on price, lead time, specification, whatever it can be, they are the skills. I'm going to talk to you briefly about the 5 persuasion methods shortly. Finance, hooray! Finance for supply chain. Another area, a bit like legal, where we don't do enough. We say, right, give me 3 years of your financial accounts, Mr. Supplier. What do? We go to finance and say, can you look at that? How's that going? Are they okay? Now, effectively, we should be able to do a ratio analysis. The figures itself are easy. The interpretation a little bit more difficult, but we should be doing this. We should be able to have professional, credible conversations with CFOs, with directors of finance, with our colleagues in finance. We should know this stuff. Contract management here is effectively talking about post-contract management, the life of the contract. Keeping suppliers motivated through a 3+2=5 deal. Yeah, we get a lot of them. I'm an ex-seller as well, by the way. When I hear a 3+2 contract, I hear 5. I hear 5. How often do you not extend these contracts? But keeping a supplier motivated for 5 years is difficult. Obviously, you need the performance measures, but generally what happens, when you award a contract, a supplier is motivated quite high. He's happy. He's out with his champagne. He's got his commission. And then over years 1, 2, 3, 4, and then suddenly 4.5 years, hooray, he's back in the room. How do we keep them suppliers motivated through the life of a contract? That is where we extract value. We've been very focused on strategic sourcing for probably 10 years now. And then suddenly we say, right, contract owner, you run that for 5 years. And we don't necessarily take them skills to manage the real contract. Strategic sourcing, great stuff. But the real stuff is the life of the contract, making sure we understand it. Moving on. Supply base analysis. Do you understand Kraljick's matrix, Porter's 5 forces to assess the supply base, making sure you can do good analysis, selection, etc. And finally, number 9, effectively stakeholder management. It says customer client management, but understanding to identify stakeholders, manage them, communicate effectively. If you're going to do strategic sourcing and you haven't mapped your stakeholders at the beginning, when you come to implementation, which effectively is change management, you're going to get resistance. It's not a difficult equation, is it? So making sure we understand how to manage our customers. We are, at the end of the day, a customer service department. We are there to support the business. Moving it on. Okay. Now, as we said earlier, we have had, was it 5 from each university? We've got 180 people now who have gone through this online questionnaire, and I'm going to reveal the results. And I've got it by university. I don't want any fighting going off. Who's going to be top of the log? It's not a competition. Okay. Now, to explain what I'm going to show to you here, the overall results now is 12,000 people have gone through this globally. I believe that's a representative sample. Okay? So we can pitch you. I'm going to show you where you are based on the universities, based on purely South Africa, and based on the global benchmark as well. Okay? When we're talking about the figures in here, if we see a score above 4 out of 5, by the way, we see that as a real strength. You're strong in that area. Below 3.25, there is some form of development need. So we can focus our attention into these competencies for development rather than, my friend, the sheep dip. Okay? Anything below 2.25, we see as maybe a significant development need. Okay, so the figures. PURCO SA Group, the average out of the 45, 5 times 9 is 45, 26.14. Now, that is actually below the global benchmark of 28.69 and slightly below the South African benchmark of 27.25. Okay, 41 individuals score better than the global benchmark. So we do have some best and brightest in there in the universities. There's people out there with good skills. However, there was a wide range of scores from 33.57 down to 13.66. By the way, no individual is going to appear on here. If you sat in the room and you've done this, you're okay. I won't name names. The negotiation profile is also done. I'm going to talk to you briefly about that in terms of, I'm going to be careful, national culture. Okay? We have a preferred style in South Africa of negotiating. You're not going to like this, but unfortunately, we're very similar to the British and the Germans. In that logic tends to be our primary mover. Facts, figures, and data. The Germans are extremely good at using logic. Let me explain to you what I mean here. So in negotiation, effectively, we've got logic, compromise, we've got bargaining, we've got emotion, and we've got threats. Now, when I say emotion, I don't mean begging for a deal or, oh, please give me savings. There's no AL on the end of emotion. It's appealing to people's feelings rather than facts, which actually is more powerful than logic generally. I really need your help here. That approach. Logic, I don't need to explain here. It's about facts, figures, and data. My usage is going up 10%. I need a reduction in cost. Threat is threatening at business, never individuals, please. Don't make threats you can't carry out. How can I possibly extend this contract if you don't give me cost reduction? I'm not going to extend the other 2 years unless you take cost out. It's making a threat. It's making a threat at the business, not an individual. Bargaining and compromise are effectively two-way movers. Emotion, logic, threat. You get what you need, you give nothing away. Bargaining is a multiple issue. If you do that, I'll do this. We trade chips. If you improve your lead time, I'll escalate your payment terms. It's a bargain. Compromise tends to be meeting on a single issue, okay, rather than a multiple issue. We'll meet in the middle. I'm British, I'm afraid. I hear 50-50 when I hear the word compromise. Please remember that compromise is not just 50-50. If you deal in Italy, which I've had the joy of doing down the years, compromiso, to an Italian, if he keeps 99 and gives you 1, that's a big compromise. You push him a little bit, and suddenly he gives you 99 and keeps 1. I don't know how it works, but that's how they do it. Okay, moving on. Right. I feel like I'm in school now. There's a lot of red pen going on here, isn't there? This effectively is showing where we've looked at the competencies, where we believe there is a development need for PURCO as a community across those 180. And as you can see there, it's quite a lot of it. I'm going to move on because I'm conscious of time. What I'm trying to show here, effectively, is the 9 competencies. So I'm not going to bore you to tears with the data of this, but they are the figures. These are the results. Where you see yellow means there is some development need. Where you see green means fantastic, there's a strength. And where you see red, we see significant development requirements. So I'm just going to look at this top row of figures. The PURCO of the 180, these are the average scores here, totaling to what I said earlier, 26. BIC means best in class. So who was best in these areas? We have somebody here, very strong across there. Then we've done max, minimum, etc. I'm not going to read all them figures out. I'm conscious that time is pushing on. But I do want to move on to show you the results across the universities. That now is showing the benchmark similar to before. That was global. We're now showing you the South African region, so pitching PURCO against everybody in this community of 3,500 people that have gone through. Spider graphs, same information, but on spider graphs, I am not going to read that out to you. And equally, same information on a spider graph. They're the numbers where we see there's some development need. So basically down here, procurement process management, pretty strong there. Now, that reflection for me is around, we have been doing strategic sourcing for a while. We know the 7-step, 5-step, whatever process. That shows me that within PURCO, over there, we're pretty good at strategic sourcing. We understand our supply chain, but as I predicted earlier, legal, finance, there's a lot of development need there. And I do believe in finance, having that knowledge of ratio analysis, of activity-based costing. It's as much costing as finance, if you like. Do you know what costs make up a price? I ask this question a lot, and often people don't understand. Breaking down costs is important. We love CPI increase in this country, don't we? 6% every year. Yeah, go on, Mr. Supplier, no problem. Yeah, inflation's going up, I'll give you 6%. And then you think, hang on a minute, if I'm doing that, labour, okay, labour's probably gone up 6%. Materials, hang on, aluminium's gone rocketing down in the last 12 months. Overheads, okay, we know the Escom price bills, so yeah, that's probably gone up. But then you're giving them 6% more profit as well, aren't you? Thinking that thing through, we need to change our focus, have some knowledge around finance so we can negotiate far better. As you can also see, negotiation is a need as well. That is showing you effectively now what those persuasion methods I briefly explained to you, how we prefer in this country to negotiate. And that shape there is very similar to what I would see if I go to Germany or if I go back to the UK, which I try and avoid, if I'm honest with you. The sun is a lot brighter here than in the UK. So you can see here that logic and compromise are our 2 preferred ways of negotiating. Now, what we're looking for, actually, can we develop more emotion, appeal to the supplier's feelings, to your stakeholders' feelings? Surely, we've worked together for 3 years, Mr. Supplier. Surely in your position you can help me out with cost reduction here. How can we work together to do this? That's using emotion to get movement, okay? And I don't need to explain logic. You're very good on that. Moving it on. Again, if you can read this now, we're seeing the figures against the provinces. I can show, oh, now here we go. If you've got good eyes, maybe in the room, this is what you want to see. Where is my university on the log now? Who's top of the log? Caprice. I think Caprice. Looking at those figures, I think Caprice. Am I saying that right? Yes, Caprice, they're top of the log. It isn't a competition. There are no prizes. But what this allows us to do, now we've done all this work, and we understand where individuals are, we can now develop a strategy. People talk strategy all the time. Well, what does that mean? Well, defining the word strategy, where do you start? Where are we now? Where do you want to get to? How we're going to get there? That is strategy. And what we've shown you this morning in terms of the SKQ, and in terms of how we can assess people, is the starting point. So where are our people now? Where do I focus my attention? At what level at CIPS should I begin? Should I start a corporate award? Do I need to plug a gap quickly and do some negotiation training or finance training? Do I look for the bigger suite and the bigger package? It allows us at CIPS to sort of diagnose and prescribe, if you like, to use a doctor analogy, what we can do to grow you as individuals, to grow the profession that Mr. Boateng was talking about this morning. The skills are required. For us to be viewed as a profession is a starting point. Having a code of ethics is one of the things we need to be viewed as a profession in the world. And we are getting there slowly but surely. That's showing effectively, again, lots and lots of data on the individual universities based on their preferred methods of persuasion and negotiation. I can show you global regions. I can show you sectors. I can show you sectors based on negotiation. But you won't read any of it. And I just about did it, didn't I? I just about. If I talked to it like I do back at home with Ormy Mason, I'd have done about 10 minutes ago, but I'll have to slow it all down for you, all right? That genuinely is how quickly I normally talk. If you think I was talking quickly then, whoa,